Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you guys today. As you can see, we are once again back at MasterDuelMeta.com. And the reason we are here is because today we are actually going to be talking about the meta a little bit in a way. What we're going to be discussing today is actually the predictions that I have, or rather, cards that maybe I think should get hit. Should/will, we'll differentiate as we go from card to card, but basically things that I expect or would expect to see on an upcoming ban list change, right? Now, it is currently March 10th, the date that I'm recording this. At this time, I think a lot of people would agree with me that Master Duel is in a bit of a need of a shakeup, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that, we've been using the same meta for a few months now, the same card pool, and it's kind of like, I don't want to use the word stagnated, because I don't think it's quite that bad. But we've definitely settled, right? The meta's pretty firmly where it's going to be until something changes. That either being a new expansion releasing or a ban list change. I actually think that both of these will come at the same time. I just think that makes a little bit more sense to me. Either that, or I could see the set coming out a little bit before the ban list. Now, I do think, again, that they will probably come at the same time because that's typically, the best time to release a ban list is right before or maybe even just after a new set comes out. And we've already been told by Konami, not even just from leaks, but from Konami themselves, that there are new sets that are planned to come out. They just haven't announced them yet. Now, the reason that I think it's going to be coming out, or rather, I don't know if I've actually mentioned this explicitly yet, but the reason I mentioned that specifically it's March 10th is because Konami has also said before that they will announce 2 weeks in advance before a ban list change. So I think we're coming up on one here at the beginning of Season 4, and the reason that I think that is because if we take a look at the sale, right, the gem, you spend money for gems, those little package deals. The sale ends at the end of, or on March 30th, or basically at the end of Season 3. Well, it makes kind of sense for one sale to lead into another, and wouldn't it make sense to have a sale when a new pack comes out, so that players are spending money to buy the new pack. It's also around the same time the Duel Pass ends, if I recall correctly. It might be a few days into the new season when the Duel Pass ends, but it's going to be around the same time, so I also predict that's when they'll release the new Duel Pass with the new pack and with the new sales. But anyway, that's my speculation on that bit. Let's talk about what we're mainly here for, which is what I think is going to be on the Forbidden Limited list change there. So the reason I'm here at MasterDuelMeta.com is because, it's pretty obvious, generally speaking, the cards that are most likely to get hit are going to be in the top tier decks. So I wanted to look at the breakdowns for all these top tier decks yet again, so that we can identify cards in these decks that are potentially candidates to get hit on the ban list. I've got all the tabs already open over here. Let's go ahead and start with good old Zodiac Tri-Brigade. So interestingly enough, Zodiac Tri-Brigade, although it is by a decent margin, right, the most powerful meta deck right now, I wouldn't call it oppressively powerful. Yes, Zodiac Tri-Brigade is firmly the top tier 1 deck, but I wouldn't call it a quote-unquote tier 0 deck. Now, what is a tier 0 deck? Well, if we think back to Dragon Rulers in 13, 14? And then we think back to, Pepe in 2016, Performage and Pals. If we want to go back even a little further to 2009, 8, 9? Jesus, I'm so bad with remembering years. Teledad, right? These are all single decks that, oppressively were powerful, right? To the point where they would make up 7 out of 8 top 8 spots, or 15 out of 16 top 16 spots in any given top cut, right? These decks single-handedly pushed almost every single other deck out of the format. Now, even though Zodiac Tri-Brigade, again, is the most powerful deck by a fairly decent margin, I wouldn't call it a tier 0 deck in that it's pushing everything else out of the format. The rest of the format is, fairly healthy and alive. I mean, it's true that, again, Trizu is, again, by a decent, fair gap on top of everything else, but I don't think the presence of Zodiac Tri-Brigade is preventing other decks from being successful, because we are seeing a lot of other decks see play right now. So that being said, what should, or quote-unquote, whether I should say, what quote-unquote should, or do I think will get hit among cards in Tri-Brigade Zodiac? I think Tenki is going to be the card to get hit, honestly. I think Tenki is the most likely card among these to go to 1, because Tenki is just it's just always been a good generic search tool, right? And depending on whether or not a Beast Warrior focused deck is tier 1, it just tends to bounce between 1 and 3 copies between the OCG and the TCG. Tenki is actually at 1 in the TCG right now, which is kind of one of the reasons I could see it going to 1. A lot of my predictions are going to be set by precedents made by other ban lists, but it is important to note that we have not seen an actual ban list update yet on Master Duel. So we don't yet know exactly how they're going to account for, the ranked formats best of 1, if they're going to take that more into consideration, if they're going to follow more of an OCG example when it comes to banning cards, or more of a TCG, or whether they're just going to, split the difference and go down the middle, or forge their own method. We don't know yet, right? So that's kind of why I'm being a bit, safe on a lot of these guesses. So let's make some more, edgy predictions, I guess, right? What are other cards I could potentially see getting hit from Tri-Brigade Zodiac? I can see a world where Tri-Brigade Revolt goes to 1. I don't think it needs to be, but of the Tri-Brigade cards, I do think Revolt is probably one of the more unfair ones. I mean, this card, if we resolve it, it pretty much single-handedly lets us play out half of our turn on our opponent's turn. We get a search, we get a mill, we get a banish, we get to just do a whole bunch of stuff just by flipping a trap card. I've seen some people say that maybe Fractal will go to 1. If you're going to have to hit one of the Tri-Brigade monsters, sure, it's going to be Fractal, but I don't think that's necessary at all. I think putting Fractal to 1 would just gut the archetype, which should not be the goal of a ban list, right? And I think that is a misguided principle that I do see some people have, is that, what is the top deck? Okay, we need to gut this deck and make it, knock it down a few pegs. It's well, no, we don't need to necessarily knock it down a few pegs, because, 1, we only need to adjust the deck's power level as much as is, ideally needed. Banning and limiting cards is never an exact science, so we can't ever be certain about that, but we don't want to go all out unnecessarily, right? And 2, with the release of upcoming cards, that will also affect the power level of decks currently available. I've done some research on OCG and TCG formats in recent times, just to kind of get a gauge of what the upcoming sets, how they might affect Master Duel. And we see archetypes like branded Despia and, decks running the Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer engine, which are, at or honestly above the power level of Zodiac Tri-Brigade. Zodiac Tri-Brigade in the TCG and OCG seems to be more naturally phased out in terms of power level than forced out the ban list. I've even seen some people say that Omen should go to 1. That's one of the worst hits you could do for this deck, honestly. It's again, that's always a popular hit, right? Oh, let's limit or ban the boss monster. But the boss monster isn't always, or even often, necessarily the problem card. And I don't even think putting Omen to 1 would hurt the deck that much. Again, you rarely use your second Omen. Usually the first one off of a Revolt combined with follow-up plays is enough to win the game there. So, I think Omen is completely the wrong hit. I don't think Fractal is the right hit. I could see Revolt potentially getting hit to 1, but I also am not certain that's the right hit. I think Tenki's going to go to 1, and I think that should probably happen. Again, just being a generic search card, it not only enables Trizu to be more powerful, but it also enables just anything with Beast Warriors to be more powerful. So, yeah, it's got to be Tenki, I think. I don't really see any other cards in the main or extra deck as I'm looking that I think are too big of issues. Well, I guess we could talk about Zeus, right? Zeus is not only very prevalent in this deck, but many, many, many meta decks. And I could see a world where Zeus gets banned. I don't think it's banned in either the OCG or TCG. I think it's at 1 in both, right? So Zeus does kind of... I don't know. I'm really on the fence about whether or not I think Zeus should get banned, to be quite honest. Because I do think it is a bit powerful, especially for basically any deck that can make an Xyz monster can make Zeus. In that regard, I do think it is a bit generic, right? And in that regard, I think it might be a bit powerful. I don't think it's oppressive to the format at this time, but I also don't think it's hard for a deck with, a decent Xyz deck to come along and then completely make Zeus, and then completely make everybody's lives miserable with Zeus. So, I don't know. Again, I'm kind of on the fence with Zeus, right? I could see a world where it's banned. I think it's probably going to stay at 1, and I think that's probably fine. but I could still see it either way. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at Drytron next, which I think is gonna have a lot more people clamoring for bans limits here than you see in like Zodiac, which is interesting, right? Because Drytron is definitely not the best deck. Zodiac in both tournament format and ladder format, Zodiac Tri-Brigade is pretty firmly a better deck than Drytron. So why do more people want to see cards from Drytron get hit? One of the main reasons for that is, and it's a similar reason why people don't like Eldritch. People want to be able to play the game. People don't like their cards being negated. People like resolving their cards. It's a pretty natural thing. So that's why cards like Herald, like Skill Drain, like any Floodgate card, you know, Rivalry goes in. There can only be one summon limit. Any of those cards, right, are always going to see more clamorings to get hit because they incentivize a less interactive playstyle. Those cards demand to be answered, otherwise you don't get to play the game. Excuse me, I took a drink of water here. So in that regard, that's why I think I've seen people say that Herald of Ultimateness and or Herald of Perfection should get banned. However, I disagree with this notion. I don't think that Herald is the problem card here. The reason I don't think Herald is a problem card is because the Herald in and of itself is not necessarily a winning strategy, right? Herald of Ultimateness has been around for a while. Herald of Perfection has been around for even longer. Herald of Perfection dates back to the 5Ds era, even. And really, there was only... I can only really think of one instance back in 5D's era where Herald of Perfection was, like, kind of a problem. It was like a tier... From what I remember, it was like a kind of borderline Tier 1, Tier 2 deck. Tier 1.5, if you will. It was on the cusp of being Tier 1. But, nope, the Herald didn't get hit, and I think that was the right call, because the Herald needs a handful of fairies in order to be able to negate. The problem isn't the Herald, the problem is that Drytron can too easily get access to their fairies. One of the main culprits for this is Cyber Angel Ben 10. This card absolutely has to go to 1. The fact that it can search itself is stupid. The fact that it can search any light fairy is also stupid. Yeah, this card just has to go to 1. It's at 1 in the TCG. I'm pretty sure it's also at 1 in the OCG. I don't know why it's at 3 in Master Duel. It's pretty clearly a mistake, in my opinion. I don't know. This, to me, is the most obvious hit, right? Like, I would, like, eat my shoe if Ben 10 does not go to 1 on the next, or the first Master Duel ban list change. Like, this is a very obvious hit to me. I could also see a world where Eva goes to 1 or is even banned. Now, it only got recently banned in the TCG, so I would be a little surprised if Eva got outright banned right away. But I think it should at least go to 1. Eva is one of the main culprits, along with Ben 10, for why Herald and in turn Drytron is such a powerful deck. Again, it's not necessarily the Herald that's the problem, it's being able to consistently get a handful of fairies. And I think Eva is especially egregious because you discard her for Herald's effect, and then she gets you more fairies. Like, that to me is very, very clearly the problem. Just the fact that you can have, like, so consistently keep filtering your hand, keep negating, keep getting the cards you need, even if you're not negating with a Herald, the fact that you can just, one card, set up a Herald of Orange Light. I definitely think that's a bit much. So I think Eva should at least go to 1. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit biased against Drytrons. I kind of think it should just outright be banned. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Cyber Angel Ben 10 going to 1... absolutely should happen, and I would be extremely, extremely surprised if it did not. Yeah, like I said, though, Herald itself is fine. I don't think it needs to be touched. I don't think really any other card in the deck is that bad. Not in the main deck, anyway. In the extra deck... Okay, so here's one, and this, again, ties into other decks, too, right? Let's talk about Union Carrier. I've seen some people say that Union Carrier should get banned. And I don't necessarily disagree with this notion. I don't know if I agree with it outright, though. Union Carrier is a bit of a problem in that it enables, like, because, you know, in Drytron it equips Eva, and Adamemancipator, as we know, equips the Buster Sword. The Buster Sword is obviously one of the bigger problems. Union Carrier is just like, I don't know. I think if you're equipping just about anything other than the Buster Sword, it's fine. So, and we'll talk about this more when we get to Adamemancipator, about the Buster Sword itself, but... do I think Union Carrier should be banned? Is Union Carrier the problem? I'm inclined to say no. That's the side of the fence I'm on. Although I will say that, like, it's very borderline as it is right now. And Union Carrier is kind of one of those cards that in that way inhibits card design. Because as long as it's legal, we can't have another Destruction Sword Buster Dragon, right? That just can't happen, because then Union Carrier just becomes even better, and it becomes available to, abuse this card that's supposed to be, for a specific archetype, and that's why it's so powerful, like Destruction Sword Buster Dragon. But, then with Union Carrier comes along and it can equip it to anything, and then now all of a sudden it can be used in any deck that's running a card of the same attribute, and it's like, you know what, or type even. It's like, I don't know. That's why I'm on the fence about Union Carrier. I don't think it's an issue right now. Again, I'm very kind of borderline about that, but I don't think it's an issue right now. But I could very easily see it becoming more of an issue in the future. So, I don't know. That's just kind of my response to Union Carrier. It's like, maybe not. Could see it either way. I don't know. I think all these other cards are fine, honestly. Just looking at the most used cards here. Yep, so again, from Drytron, I think Ben 10 will absolutely go to 1. I'd be shocked if it didn't. Eva should get hit. To what capacity it will, I don't know. I don't think it'll get banned, even though I kind of think it should. Again, that might just be my bias, but who knows. And then Union Carrier, like I just got done saying earlier, is like, I don't know. Okay, let's move on to Virtual Worlds here. So Virtual World, it's interesting, right? On the Master Duel Discord, this deck actually just got bumped up to tier 1, but I haven't seen a whole lot of it this season. Like, I saw it a little bit when I was climbing, but I think only like 2, maybe 3 games I played against it, and I haven't seen it at all since I hit Plat 1. So, I don't know if people are just sleeping on this deck or what, or if it's actually like just being a little bit overrated. I don't know. As far as what's going to get hit in this deck, I think the main deck is fine. Like, I don't think any of the Virtual cards in and of themselves are too powerful. I don't know. If you're going to hit a Virtual Gold card, maybe Kowloon. I also don't have too much experience playing against this deck, and I obviously don't really have any experience playing with it. So I couldn't tell you for certain, how powerful the cards are. But the times going off the times I have played against it, I don't think any of the Virtual cards themselves are that big of a problem. Let's talk about the extra deck, though. Let's particularly talk about True King of All Calamities, aka VFD, which stands for the Very Fun Dragon, which is, of course, an ironic nickname because we all know this card is not fun at all to play against. This is what I mean when I talk about an oppressive card. I talked about oppressive decks earlier, but True King of All Calamities, this is an oppressive card. Its effect is powerful, and it completely stops your opponent from doing just about anything with monsters. And that's really, really annoying, and a lot of people really don't like to have their stuff shut down. It tends to make you a pretty big target. So this is a scenario, however, where I am inclined to agree with the majority of opinion. I think True King of All Calamities should be banned. I think it is too powerful as a card, and I also think it's just poor design in that it's not fun to play against. Now, I don't think how fun a card is to play against should be the sole determinant in whether or not it gets hit, but I think in this case in particular, it doesn't help, right? That this card is not fun to play against. Yeah, honestly, looking at the rest of Metal Foes, I saw the Metal Foes fusion here, that's what made me say Metal Foes. Looking at the rest of Virtual World, I don't know. I don't think anything else is really a problem here, to be honest with you. We could potentially talk about Bamboozling Shadow, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, and I don't even think this is a problem card. No, I think it's fine, the deck, except for VFD. True King of All Calamities should get the banhammer, I think. Alrighty, let's talk about our new pet favorite, Adamemancipator. So, as much as it pains me to say this, because I really, really, really do like this deck, Black Dragon is a completely stupid card. I don't really know why it's at 3. I think it should... I think it should go to 1, personally. I do see a lot of people say, oh, well, there's no point in putting it at 1. You only need 1. And yes, that is true. You only need 1 for Adamemancipator to function as a deck. But I think 0... But here's the thing, right? I think putting it to 0, aka banning Black Dragon, I don't want to call it the death knell of Adamemancipator, but it would be a huge hit to the deck, and it would honestly, it would push it down to tier 3 at best. Like, it might not even be that if Block Dragon gets banned. And I don't think we necessarily need to gut the deck. Again, I'm like trying to fight my own bias here a little bit, because obviously I just built this deck. And I really like it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know. Me owning a deck doesn't really... I try to let that factor in on my opinions. Really, more than anything, it's the fact that I think this deck is so much fun that's affecting, like, you know, making me hesitate more than anything else. So, okay, I'm going to try to be completely objective here. Should Block Dragon get banned? Is Adamemancipator too powerful with Block Dragon? I think in a best of 3 format, the answer is pretty firmly yes. In a best of 1 format, I sincerely think we might be able to get away with 1 Block Dragon. Now, here's the thing. As much as I love Adamemancipator, I acknowledge Block Dragon really can't stay at 3. The card is ridiculously powerful. It cannot stay at 3. I think it'll be fine at 1. And that is my, as unbiased as I can make it, opinion. No, I do think I landed in a pretty unbiased place. Yeah, I think it's fine at 1, or at the very least we can try it at 1, right? And because really, again, in a best of 1 format, you're not always gonna, you know, have access to your Block Dragon. I mean, sure, I know all you have to do is summon Gallant, granted, but that's kind of harder said than done sometimes if your opponent, you know, times their hand traps right. Whereas in a best of 3 format, you're pretty likely to see Block Dragon multiple times, you know, during a best 2 out of 3 games. So yeah, in best of 3 format, absolutely. I think Block Dragon should be banned. Here in Master Duel for best of 1, again, I think we might be able to get away with 1 copy. We already talked about Union Carrier and good old, where is it? Here we go. Dragon Buster Destruction Sword here. Oh boy. So, I do think the combination of these 2 cards is pretty unfair. I don't know if it's pretty unfair. It's kind of unfair. I do think it should be addressed at some point. I don't know if it needs to be right now, but I do think it should be addressed. Which do I think is the bigger problem? The Dragon Buster or the Union Carrier? Again, like I kind of mentioned back in Drytrons, I'm personally kind of inclined to think the Dragon Buster is a little bit more of the problem. I know it's easy to want to defend this card because it's a part of Buster Blader, which is a, like, 1 fan favorite, 2 under, you know, powered archetype compared to other things. So I understand the want to defend a Dragon Buster Destruction Sword here. But, like, I don't know, let's be real. Just equip the fact that you can equip this card and your opponent just can't summon from the extra deck, like, that's not great design. I don't really think that's great design. I think it's kind of stupid, to be honest. So I do think this is probably the card of the 2 that should get hit. And again, I know it's Union Carrier is the generic support card here. Union Carrier is the one potentially inhibiting card design by being so generic. And that's why I'm super on the fence about Union Carrier. But I don't think Dragon Buster Destruction Sword is without sin here. And again, I know it's part of an archetype that's, again, like kind of a fan favorite to some people. And also the archetype itself isn't particularly powerful. But I also kind of think that's a reason why it's not a huge problem if this gets hit, like if this goes to 0, because, like, I don't know. I'm sure some people in the comments are gonna get mad at me for saying this, but, like, my opinion is it's fucking Buster Blader. Who cares? Like, I know. I don't mean to invalidate you if that's your favorite deck. That's my kind of like shitty take of what I actually think, which is like, I think it's fine if we end up inadvertently hitting. I don't know, though. As I go to say that out loud, do I really think it's fine if we end up inadvertently hitting a rogue deck trying to curb a engine for a tier 1 deck? I have to think about that more. That's an interesting discussion topic, I think, actually. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just really on the fence about that. I'm not too sure. So we addressed Block Dragon, we addressed the Buster Sword, we addressed the Union Carrier. Is there anything else in this deck that I think needs to get hit? No, I think the rest of it's pretty much fine. Yeah, I think it's fine. Let's talk about Maxi actually for a second while I'm thinking about it. I think we've all kind of accepted that Maxi is now a part of Master Duel. Hell, I know in my first Tries You video, I don't even think I was running Max C in my first video because I was afraid it might get banned. Because this is back when we thought the TCG ban list was going to be the Master Duel ban list, right? We thought the Master Duel format was a placeholder format. Now we're very much aware that that is not the case. So I think we've all kind of accepted that Max C is here to stay. Here among TCG players, I know it's kind of a controversial opinion whether or not you think Max C is healthy for the game. I think it's fine. I honestly do. I think Max C is perfectly fine. I could see it going to 1. I think that might even be right. But at 3, I don't think it's a huge issue, personally. Okay, what else do we have here? Ah, yes, of course. We have good old Phantom Knights. Oops, looks like I accidentally clicked on a deck instead of the breakdown here. Yeah, good old Phantom Knight breakdown. So why are we in Phantom Knights? Isn't this like a tier 3 bordering on Rogue deck? What could possibly need to get hit? Oh. Yeah, good old number 86, Rangabongo, as I like to call him. Yeah. So I haven't personally encountered this card a whole lot. I've only had it actually summoned on me once. But this is another one of those feels bad kind of cards, right? This is another one of those cards where when it gets dropped on you, you kind of just end up not being able to, well, really do much of anything. Because it's always dropped with 5 or sometimes even 6 materials, which means it's unaffected by other cards' effects. It can't be destroyed by battle. Your opponent can't summon monsters. They can set monsters, but they can't normal or special summon them. And then once returned, you can also just blow up your opponent's board. So that's obviously really, 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 really powerful. And I think the particularly impressive part is the combination of the 3+ effect and the 4+ effect. The fact that it can't be, well, and also the 1+ effect, the whole package, really. It can't be destroyed by battle, can't be affected by other cards, and your opponent can't summon. Like, that's just a recipe for a card that will just end games by itself. Not even by doing anything particularly impressive, just by being on the board. And I do agree with the opinion that it does need to get hit. I think this card does need to get banned. That said, it's still legal in the OCG, and it doesn't see a whole lot of play from what I gather. Or if it does, it doesn't see play in decks that are oppressively powerful. But it is, I know it's banned in the TCG. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of inclined to agree with the notion that it should be banned. I don't think it's, I think it's an oppressive part of this deck. I think Phantom Knights could even, still be a fine tier 3 deck without Rangamenad? I've never actually tried to pronounce this card. I just call it Rangabongo, honestly. But, yeah, I think Phantom Knights will be fine as a deck without this card. I think it could even still stick around in tier 3 and still be fine there. I've seen the fringe opinion, and when I say fringe opinion, I probably saw one Reddit comment that said this, that said, no, bamboozling Gossip Shadow is the problem. No, not really. I do understand the argument that, oh, this one card just kind of makes any numbers card potentially dangerous, but I don't know. We've pretty much seen most, if not the vast majority, of numbers cards, and I don't think there's any others that, are made too stupidly powerful by this. I might be ignorant, of course, there might be an example I'm not thinking of, but I don't think anything currently is on the level that, Bamboos and Gossip Shadow supports good old Rangabongo here, and I think this is the problem between the two, so I do think this is the card to get banned. Let's talk about other cards that aren't in any of these top decks. So if we go to the search thing here, it'll actually automatically default cards by popularity. Okay, there the images go. Yeah, so I kind of glanced at this earlier to see if there are any other cards that just see a lot of play that I think should get hit. And I think for the most part, all these cards we see here are fine, right? I don't think any of them are really that big of an issue. And then even as you get to the bottom, you get more into archetype-specific stuff, but even these generic hand traps, I think, are fine. I think Hullby is good at 2. I know it's at 1 in the TCG, but I think that's dumb. I think it should be at 2. I think 2 is the perfect number for this card. Access Code is fine. Zeus we talked about. Droplet's fine. Yeah, I think Droplet's fine. Appalachia, yeah, I think all these cards are fine. I've seen some people say that, Skill Drain, right, should get hit to, I probably need to, type out the full card here. There we go. Yeah, I've seen some people say that, well, now it's not showing up at all. There we go. That Skill Drain should go to 1. I can understand the argument for this, and I don't even necessarily think it's wrong for this card to be at 1, but I don't think it has to be. I think it's, I'll say fine with an asterisk. I think it's fine at 3. again, I think it gets a bit of a bad rep because it's a floodgate card, because it's a card that keeps you from playing the game. But I don't think it's oppressive in the way that it does it. Or in its presence in the meta, even, I should say. I don't think, that, again, this is a floodgate, yes, but I don't think it's an oppressive one. So I think, personally, skill drain is fine. But, yeah, that's about all I've got. So I also want to know, though, what do you guys think? I'd love to see some discussion in the comments, seeing what you guys think. I'm sure there will be, regardless of whether I ask for it or not. But what do you guys think is going to get hit on the ban list? What do you think should get hit? What do you think realistically will get hit? Anything that I missed? Maybe anything that you might have disagreed with? You know, I'm totally open for discourse here. So, yeah, I love to see those in the comments below. I'm always open to... I've said this, you know, a lot, right? I'm open to any kind of feedback. I think it's unwise to just shut out feedback, so that's why I tried to respond to comments, and that's why I encourage them as well. But, yeah, that's about all I've got, I think, for today's Master Duel video. I appreciate you watching to the end, as always, or watching any amount, honestly. And I also appreciate you, especially if you're commenting and subscribing, but really, if you're here in any capacity, that's just, like, super awesome to me. So, thank you. I appreciate it. This is HexLex signing out. Hope you have a fantastic day.